What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we got round three with Brian of Currents. It is great to be able to talk with you. Thanks for coming back on the show, man.
It's great to have myself be here, I guess. That's what I don't know what I was gonna say, but that's what I said.
It's so awesome to have you here, man. The last time we spoke to you, it was like in the heart of lockdown when we were talking about The Way It Ends. And now that album was absolutely kick-ass, one of my personal favorites of 2020. And now we got The Death We Seek, which I think is even better than The Way It Ends. I think you really topped it. For people who haven't heard the full-length album yet, do you feel that the first singles that we heard so far, though, the title track, The Death We Seek, So Alone, Vengeance, and Remember Me, is a good representation of this whole album, or is that just the tip of the iceberg of what's to come?
They're the worst ones. No, I'm just kidding. We were just talking about how a lot of our favorite songs aren't even out yet. I mean, Remember Me is definitely like up there. The Death We Seek is like one of my favorite songs because it was like the I don't know, kind of like the origin point of the record, I guess, because it was like one of the first songs that we did after The Way It Ends. Yeah, like a lot of our favorite songs aren't out yet. Like there's stuff that is yet to come that is awesome. Is the record going to be out when this is put out?
No, this is uploaded by midnight tonight.
Oh, uploaded by midnight? Okay, so you don't get to hear anything. We're not talking about anything. But yeah, some of my favorites. Track 2 is kind of a band favorite because it's psychotic and ridiculous. And then the last track, hopefully it kind of has the same last song buff that the previous ones in like Shattered and Forever Marked and that Better Days have had, because that is like one of my favorite songs that I've ever done. It's like the most personal song I've ever written, lyrically, even though it might not kind of come off that way, but it is. And yeah, there's a song where I'm not doing the chorus that someone else in the band is doing the chorus, and you could probably guess, but it's ridiculous, awesome. I remember hearing the demo of it and just being like, nope, I'm not singing that, you are. And yep. But yeah, there's still a lot of things that are going to happen that are you're going to hear in a few days that we're really excited for you to hear. Yeah. And the best is yet to come in my mind.
Yeah, I can't wait for the rest of the world to hear it. Because like, because I thought that The Way It Ends was a really good follow up to I Let the Devil In. I really thought that like there was sort of like a big evolutionary jump between the albums. But when it came to the making of The Death We Seek, was there sort of like a preconceived vision? Were you trying to continue in the vein of The Way It Ends in a way, or was this meant to sort of like signify a new beginning for Currents?
I don't know. It was kind of just Chris's process when he's writing the instrumental tracks is a little different than mine going into like writing the vocals and the lyrics. He is always trying to like, expand on the sound and like move things in like different directions, naturally, of course, like just to kind of like also push what I'm able to do in a sense where like he'll write a part that like calls for a different set of vocals than like I'm used to doing or that I haven't had a chance to be able to do yet. Like for this record, The Death We Seek, there's a lot more opportunities to do lows and highs and like have more variety in like the vocal like approaches. There's some like really like triumphant like fists kind of clenched fists like choruses, I guess. You go to a show and everyone's like yeah, but there's a lot of that. And so he kind of really like opened up the possibilities for like where we could go and for what I could do. And so I think that given those things, and then he works in like the certain parameters of like, we're not gonna like completely diverge. And if he does, he'll do it for fun and be like, hey, what do you guys think about this? And we'll usually be like, oh, that's actually really cool. Or we'll be like, but like, it's just like, we ultimately kind of like collaboratively decide where it's gonna go, and Chris will just kind of be Chris and just do his thing, and then we go from there with everything that everybody's like really excited about, that all feels like cohesive and it feels like the next step forward for the band. So we're always trying to just like evolve and like move into the next kind of phase while still just being true to ourselves and being authentic and expressing ourselves in the way that we feel like is the most genuine that we can.
Yeah. Well, I've always like emotional. Calling Currence's music emotional is like an understatement in a way. Like I still think that Never There opening up with that on the way it ends was one of the most unsettling intros in a way. The way that it just sort of pulled you in, and then like you have ways of just going straight into it. For the emotional elements that you channel into Currents, is it more or less like a reflective of a personal spot in a way? Is it always coming from within, or is there like a lot of observation going into sort of your lyrical ideas?
Yeah, some of it is observational, some of it is looking in, I guess. Like Never There was kind of this, at least the vocal pattern and placement and stuff. Usually I don't do this. Usually I write to tracks. I write to like what Chris is sending me, kind of like how like, like a rapper gets a beat and is like, oh, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. And sometimes they'll have like stuff written or whatever, but like for the most part, I don't like to do that. I like to write to the song. And then in that particular instance, that was something like there was like a couple of like lines that I was like, I don't know, I was like practicing or something, and then I just kind of was like, um, just going off, just trying to do like a stream of consciousness, kind of like screams sort of thing, um, and some of those lines and that delivery was something that I was like, oh, that's actually really cool. So let me write this down, and like I'll have it in my brain. And then a few months later, Chris sends that, the Never There, like the instrumental. He's like, maybe this is like an interlude or something like that. And I was like, here, give me a minute. And then I took that idea that I had and I kind of threw it over the top. And then, I had to change the tempo a little bit to make it match. And yeah, that was kind of how Never There happened. It was like some like a pre-written sequence of like words that I had already had, and then I expanded on it to like fit the length and the pace of that song. And so that one was very just like, yeah, personal. It wasn't really meant to go to Currents or go to anywhere, but it just fit.
Mm.
And then yeah, for the rest of everything, it's kind of like I'll hear the song and then just whatever I think needs to go there will go there. And then whatever the lyrics are, I'm not really like thinking so much about what it all means. I'm thinking about putting it all where it needs to be. And then like I will kind of like craft the meaning from there, change words, move this, move that. So it's like a little more consistent. But for the most part, if I'm writing everything in one go, like I can fill in the blanks here and there with stuff that makes sense for the song.
Well, I mean, if you work on something for a long period of time, does it almost make it a little more difficult to sort of capture the emotional spark that initially brought on the idea in a way?
Yeah, exactly. But there's times where going back to the way it ends, there's almost like a contradictory. Usually, yes, but when we were doing Origin on the way it ends, that song we had a different ending. Like the ending was the same, but it was like a different kind of like I don't know. It was different lyrics and like kind of a slightly different pattern, but it just wasn't landing the right way. And there was a lot of grinding on the way it ends, where we had entire songs that changed fundamentally, and lyrics had to get rewritten for like a giant chunk of the songs. And so that was a pretty miserable process at times. And thankfully we got through it, and Ryan Latrue was like super helpful in that department. Just kind of helping like pull stuff out and like being collaborative with like ideas and stuff. But that was a really challenging period where there was like I had written like most of the record and now it's all gone and we have to like do it again. And for Origin, that last little like it starts with we're dying in the storm while world is anyway. From that line, it was like the end of the chorus into like the outro of the song. That whole sequence got rewritten to be what it is now, and it was like the last lyrics that were written for the way it ends. So even though it wasn't the last track, those were the last lyrics that were actually written and like recorded for the album. And it was like it's still like my favorite section of lyrics, even though it's really short. It's like my favorite thing one of my favorite things I've ever written. And so yeah, it's weird because the pre-pro was done maybe like a year before that, or something. And so almost like having that time and that time to kind of like reapproach it and think about it differently and like change things, um almost, yeah, help the song a little bit in that little particular instance. But yeah, for the most part, like if you write something and you get stuck on it, you don't want to change it. And even if you don't like it, you don't know what else can go there, because only that thing that you don't like can go there.
I mean, when I ask people how the making of an album was, and everybody says we all mutually came together and it was all like mutual, like I never believed that term mutual. You're a band of 4 or 5 individuals. You're writing a dozen or so songs. You all have your own different trials and tribulations. You're all different emotions and experiences. But do you think that maybe can like? Do you and Chris and everybody in the band really need to be in the same mind frame when writing music together in order to make the songs, or could all of you being in your different headspaces almost kind of help the current songwriting process?
Yeah, I think it helps because Chris will have his idea of like where he wants the band to go and like the things that he wants to accomplish musically with the band, and then I will basically just try to, you know, do my best to whatever I think goes there is what I'm going to put there. Whatever I would want to hear in that spot, or whatever I think is like, you know, like what do I want to hear there and still be able to express myself the right way that I want to. Um, and then that's what goes there. As far as everybody else, I feel like the songwriting process is pretty much a lot of me and Chris, and so when it comes to the studio, there's like kind of a level of like they want to have input, right? But like also don't really want to step on like toes or like be like, oh, this thing that you love, what if we just change it? Like they're kind of worried about that. And so there's like a little bit of like, I could sense like a little bit of like a hesitation in being like, oh, well, what if we completely like change this part or do this? But for the most part, like we will be like really collaborative there. And we try to like entertain any idea, like, you know, because there's not really a sense of like, you know, we know better than like Christian does or than Matt does. Like, you know, we wouldn't have them in the room if we didn't trust their input as well and want them to be there and want them to be part of the process and like have their own inputs here and there. And so, and like, you know, there's times where I have an idea and it gets shot down by the council, you know what I mean? Like, or like Chris will have an idea and we'll all be like, you know, but like everybody is entitled to have their own opinion on how it should go. And like, everyone should have a chance to offer a solution where there is an issue, you know? So, and then, yeah, it does come into everybody having like a different headspace and all that stuff where everybody kind of sees music differently, but we all see music similarly enough to like be able to, you know, agree on everything. But it's nice to have everybody pull in their different inspirations and influences. And there's times where I'll write things that I know that like Christian will be like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Or I know that Matt will appreciate or something like that. Like I like to take inspiration from the people that are like around that I know will like the things that are being put down, so to speak. But yeah, everyone's got their own perspective and their own brain, and it all helps make it magic, you know?
Well, depending on what you're singing about too, like I thought, and this could be my interpretation of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought a song like "How I Fall Apart" was like a very personal song in a way. And then when I look at the Death We Seek, I feel like songs like "Unfamiliar" or "Living in Tragedy," or even a track like "Beyond This Road," you know, depending on what the lyrical subject matter could be, does it resonate with you in a different way depending on what you're singing about, or being that it's still coming from your voice and it's coming from the same band, it hits you in a very similar way and it's just a different subject matter?
Yeah, I guess subject matter doesn't really, I don't really think about what the song is about so much when I'm like performing it, especially if you've just done it so many times. Like it all is kind of just like the same task getting done, I guess. But like, especially when you sometimes you'll feel a song more when certain things are going on in your life. Like one of those like more introspective songs or like more personal songs comes up and you're really kind of like feeling those emotions in that moment. Yeah, that can like kind of you know, it can come across a different way, and you it evokes like a different emotion and like I guess a different delivery. But yeah, with stuff that's more like Beyond This Road, where it's a lot more like that song feels like a lot more like observational for the most part, where it's like other things happening and not so much like feelings besides like a couple pieces of it. But that song's also kind of technical vocally for me, where like that one is just going to be like it's a lot of like fast stuff and going from like screaming right to singing, then back to screaming. Um, and so I feel like in my mind for that, I'm just going to be like focused on like getting the job done, you know?
Yeah. Well, does the different usages of your voice express a different side of who you are as well?
Yeah, you definitely feel different when you're screaming than you do you're singing. I feel like I have to kind of go to different places, even though you technically like shouldn't really, but like I feel like mentally, yeah, you're kind of in a different place when you're trying to like sing this like really emotional line um at like the top of your range, right? Than if you're doing like this low that is just like this long drawn out like guttural noise, I guess. So they are different places that you have to go in your head, but no matter what, I feel like for all of it, um the key thing is just like releasing tension, just being like relaxed while you're doing it. um and sometimes like releasing that tension is like part of I feel like the screaming stuff, because that's where I'll kind of get like my like tension out, because it feels more cathartic than doing like the singing at times, because the singing you feel more like you have to be like in it and on it, and for screaming I can kind of just do my thing, you know.
Well, if you have to confront maybe like your own demons in a way, or sort of sing about something that you wish to not revisit in real life or whatever, or even just because there are grueling days in the studio and there are grueling songwriting days. It's obviously very cathartic to write songs about bad times, but does that also maybe make it just as deteriorating as well?
I don't know, because I'm not really like, if something has that like visceral emotional feeling, uh to me, like I get something out of that, like it's more exciting for me and like kind of like gets the adrenaline going. Like for example with the way it ends, when we were doing uh Never There for an example, or yeah, Never There, or like in Let Me Leave, that little scream bridge after the second verse, where it's just like a whole like scream section. It was very like we're doing that in one go. Like the any of those like emotional screaming parts, like that has to be one take, just you know, get it done, and whatever that is what that is. And so like yeah, for Never There we did that in one take at the studio, and then for like Let Me Leave, that little like I just wanted you to have better life like section there, that was all one take, and that was like stuff that we saved for last, so that it would be like, we've done everything, everything is done, you're putting everything into these last sections, you know what I mean, like. And so yeah, they're like emotional parts and they're meant to be like done emotionally, but that is like, that's like the most, I feel like, yeah, the most true expression of my voice is like those like mids, I guess, like that similar kind of tone to like, yeah, Never There or like Let Me Leave. That is like the most authentic, natural, easy, like adrenaline fueled thing that I can do. And yeah, to be able to do that and just get it in there and like be able to do it live too is like awesome.
Yeah. Well, you also released instrumental versions of every song. Like I'd imagine you're gonna do this for the Death We Seek, being that we had it with Devil and the way it ends. Because when I listen to like a track like Into Despair or Feel the Same, when it's instrumentally, I really just get a completely different vibe behind it. And so, do you think that with the instrumental versions of a current song, that maybe brings a different type of context to it, or brings a different type of emotion when the lyrical message isn't being layered over it?
Yeah, I mean, you get to see like the most final iteration of like Chris's process. Like you're hearing it like way more polished and final than I would have heard it the first time that I did. You know what I mean? Because when I hear it, it's like a demo, and I can kind of like imagine where it's gonna go from there. Like what it's like when you hear like a demo track, you have to think about what it's going to sound like, not what it sounds like right now. And so, yeah, it's like when you are hearing that, like the instrumental, you're hearing Chris's vision essentially. Is like, this is what he wanted to put out there to the world. This is what he sent me to, like, put my lyrics on. And you're hearing like every little detail of everything that he put into that song, because he literally recorded all the guitars himself, at his house. So like you're hearing all of that stuff, just, and it's cool. Plus it also lends a little bit of like, if you want to like go over and sing the songs along yourself, like you can, because there's no vocals on the way. It's great.
When it comes to an album like The Place I Feel Safest, and then you look at, I Let the Devil In and so much, was this this is like a new debate I like to have, like, is evolution really something that you can control, or is evolution something that comes naturally? Because when I do listen to Tremor or Dreamer, or like Silence, in a way, like I do see like a band, like you guys have really hit the ground running in a way with that album, and I'm just wondering if the evolution was almost foreseeable in a way, or did it just kind of come naturally when you weren't really expecting it?
I don't know. It's funny to think about like Place I Feel Safe with songs. Like, I mean, we play Apnea and like stuff like, a decent amount, but like, yeah, thinking about like Dreamer or like any of like the deep cuts and stuff, like I don't want to say that I'm like, oh no, you know what I mean? But I'm like, wow, we've come a long way, and it's, I think you can see it where things are just more polished, like they're more intentional. The structure is more there, or at least they're more like, I feel like more palatable structures, so to speak. Like Chris's songwriting has come a long way. I feel like my lyrics and like my just vocal ability and like sense of where things should go and what they should sound like has gotten a lot better. I think we've all just gotten a lot more like experience under our belts, just from the things that we've seen, the experiences that we've had, let alone playing shows, like all the stuff in and out of playing music too. Like I think that evolution is kind of an inevitable thing, as long as you're growing as a person and you're learning things and you're staying open to being taught, and you stay open to being I guess, yeah, open to, dude, I don't know. You get what I'm saying, is like, as long as you are continuing to like grow as a person and mature, and like you're going to change the way that things are done, and you're going to have higher standards for yourself. So yeah, I would say that the evolution is not like intentional, but it's inevitable. Like you're always going to want to be doing different things, and you're going to want to like outdo yourself every time. Yeah. And so
yeah, now that you're doing the headline tour at the Gramercy Theater, you need to bring out some of those deep cuts. I want to hear Best Memory and Another Life, or maybe even Shattered. I saw you guys at the Kingsland. I saw you guys at the Kingsland, and that was probably the closest I'll get to those like early Currents days. But you got to bring out some of those deep cuts.
Yeah, I remember Kingsland. We were chilling. We did an interview outside at Kingsland, didn't we?
No, we did it. We did it in their hidden dressing room. Up there. I remember you guys were my final interview of 2018 too.
Yes.
I started with Diamond.
And I was like, I Let the Devil In, right?
Yep, that was right as you were putting out I Let the Devil In. So like I was,
yeah, oh my god.
Yeah, and that was a good time. But come on, dude, you got to bring out some of those deep cuts for the headliner.
I know. I don't have the set in front of my face, but there's some stuff that I feel like you're gonna be like, oh, they're playing that, like for the most part, it's really hard to like get, because like even though we're like still like a growing band, right, we're not like the biggest band in the world, we have a lot of music, like and it's crazy to think about, because this is our third album, it's our first headliner, we're playing like an hour, so like and like that's a lot of time for us, but it's not a lot of time in the grand scheme of things, and in comparison to like how much music we actually have. So like, plus with the expectation of like singles and doing new stuff from the record that we want to play that's not singles, then you have that chunk of time that's taken up by that, and then it's like, what do we do from there? Do we do stuff that we like? Do we do stuff that people have listened to the most? We tried to take like especially for like some of the deep cuts, we tried to, if we were going to do one, we wanted to do like the most listened to or most relevant of the deep cuts. You know what I mean?
Well, you're always gonna
So
want to have that one fan who like wants like the deep cuts like off of like the early demo that maybe you guys don't even have a copy
play
of anymore.
withered,
Yeah.
play
Well,
victimized.
well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this year, yeah. Well, I was gonna ask because this year does mark 10 years of it's 10 years of currents,
Oh,
and I
hanging by a thread. That's the one everybody asked for. It's so funny.
oh my god,
What are you
yeah.
gonna play hanging by a thread?
Well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, you didn't even come into currents until like the place I feel safest, right? You weren't on the victimized
Right.
back in the
Yeah.
day too.
Yeah. I wasn't. Yeah, that was Patrizio. Yeah, Withered was my first song with the band, and then the place I feel safest was my first record with the band.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But coming into the band, I had to play like Hanging by a Thread, Victimized, like Solace, like all those songs, like, you know, because that was what they had. And then obviously Life Lost, you know, like Anxiety and like Derelict, which was funny because like I never did like the rap part because I was just like, I don't know it. Like what else? What the fuck? Oh yeah, like Rose. I don't think I ever played My Promise Kept, but like, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and you brought me into my because I have two more questions for you if that's cool. But
Yeah.
when you came into Currents, were you kind of like looking at Victimized, being like, this is how I have to sing on the place I feel safest, or were you kind of given full range to bring your own mix into Currents? And being that this is the headliner tour, 10 years after Victimized, can we be getting like a celebration of some sort? You maybe play the whole catalog.
You know, it's funny because I never thought that I ever had to replicate what Patrizio was doing. And I knew in my brain that like I couldn't in a sense because his style is so much different than mine, where like I wouldn't even want to like attempt to like bite him and like do the same thing. And I don't even know that that is what the band necessarily would have wanted anyway. But like it was a thing where uh, I had already been, I had already written a lot of music by that point. Like I already had like, I had what, like 3 or 4 projects that had music out at the time. So my voice was on a lot of recordings already. And I was comfortable with like kind of being in the studio, especially with the guy that we went to, Randy Pascarella. Shout out Randy Pascarella. He recorded Withered. He recorded like all of Current's previous stuff before Place I Feel Safest, and he also recorded me in all of my bands before Currents. But yeah, like I was comfortable with that process, and like Currents went to Randy too, and I was comfortable with Randy. So like Randy knew what I could do, the band knew what I could do because it was already like all out there. And I don't think there was ever an expectation to replicate what was already being done. It was more just like, do your thing, bro. And it was like, I was like, okay, cool. So I just did what I did and never really thought about it, and never really thought about like what the band sounded like before vocally or what was being done at the time, because they just wanted like a fresh, clean slate sort of thing, like fresh start. And the best way to do that is just be yourself, you know?
Definitely. And the final question I wanted to ask you is, and I remember like the last time I spoke with you, I'm not sure if it was the first or second interview, but we talked about like playing with a variety of different bands because Currents definitely has the ability. Like I know that you did I saw you last time with Thyarda's Murder, I believe, and then like
Yeah, I know.
yeah,
It's ridiculous.
which was awesome. But I know you also played with As I Lay Dying, and you played with you played with just all types of varieties. And when I saw you on the North Lane tour, that was a different vibe as well. So we talked about playing with different bands, but I've also seen you play at different types of venues. First time I saw you was at the Kingsland, Hole in the Wall, Dive Bar, grimy hardcore. We all love that stuff. And then I've also
Yes.
seen you play at Gramercy Theater and Irving Plaza, where there's a barricade, bigger capacity. So depending on the type of venue that Currents is playing at, does that depend? Does that maybe change or alter or bring a different types of Currents experience?
Definitely. I do want to say shout out Thyarda's Murder. I still can't believe we toured with them. I fucking love them. They're awesome. But cannot believe we toured with them because
I think they reached out
Thyarda's
to
Murder.
I think they reached out to the wrong band that Chris was in.
I don't know how that worked out because it was like, so we're like really similar to After the Burial. Well, not really similar, but like, you know, similar style of music, right? So it felt like we were closer to, because what, that was Brand of Sacrifice,
Yep.
us, After the Burial, Thyarda's Murder. And like, yeah, Brand of Sacrifice was like closer to Thy Art Is Murder in sound, even though they kind of like, they're kind of like a hybrid of genres, so to speak, with Brand. And I guess, yeah, Thy Art as well. But we were a little more similar to After the Burial. So it was like, Brand, us, then like After the Burial, Thy Art Is Murder, like rotate. So it all made sense in context. But if you take like us, like think like Feel the Same and then Hate. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy.
Well,
but
I mean, Thy Art Is
anyway.
Murder toured with Killswitch Engage, so I think there's
They
plenty
sure
of
did. Yeah, they're
crossovers.
another super versatile band. They could
Yeah.
like really prosper anywhere, and
Lorna
they're awesome.
Shore was
But
opening for As I Lay Dying, so it works. But
it works. It does. It does work.
Yeah.
And we can be heavy too, I guess. But yeah. So, and also the other thing I was gonna say, yeah, going from Kingsland to Gramercy seems like insane, right? Because that was like 2018,
Yep.
and this is 2023. It's like, wow, that is really like an incredible like thing to think about. Because I was a headliner, I think, too.
Yep.
And yeah, that's like can't really wrap my head around that. But yeah, when we're playing in like we've done a lot of like the larger scale stuff this year, kind of like getting ready and like getting acclimated to like playing shows again. Like we did Parkway Drive, which was like massive. It was like Starland Ballroom, places like that, like House of Blues. And then like we had the Killswitch shows, which was again also like 1,500 2,000 cap rooms for the most part, and you play the show and you feel like it's kind of like a festival vibe where like you're playing to like this whole room, and at times it's really cool, especially when the vibe is great and people are like into it and the energy is like the energy of like a lit gigantic show is unmatched, of course, like there's nothing like that. But when you're playing to like 1,500 or 2,000 people and they're all just kind of staring at you, it is a little like it's a little trippy, but you get it done because that it's like people are just tired. You're not the band that they came there to see, and they're giving you the time of day and they're watching you, and you have to think about it differently. But when you're playing, like we did like the Trilogy tour or like the Miss May I tour that we did recently, where it's like, in the pocket, we're playing like, like clubs and stuff like that, where, you're dealing with like 750 to 1,000, or sometimes even like, like a little lower in like a tight room, where it's like really in the pocket. That is also unmatched because it's just like, you can't really beat the energy of like that club show. And that's what I'm really looking forward to on this run, is that we're going to have a lot of that. Like some of the venues got upgraded to like larger, capacities, which is fantastic. But like when you have a room of like 500 people or less, and that shit is packed and everybody's there and excited and like ready to like have the show, it's just incredible. Like I can't wait, like to be able to like physically like be in that intimate setting again on our own headliner, like with all this stuff to play and like all this music that we're gonna get through and like people get to sing along to. Like it's gonna be so awesome.
Yeah, I because you are like the ideal front man. Like the energy that you channel on that stage is truly incredible. I imagine in the studio too, where like it's a more static and more controlled environment, so like playing on stage where you can unleash everything. I mean, is that something that you practice in a way? Like, can you practice crowd interaction and stage presence as much as you practice like the song?
You can. I don't so much, really. Like I will, I back in the day, I've done my share of, bedroom jamming. You know what I'm saying? But like,
mirror.
It's been a little while. Yeah, in the mirror with like a bass that you're not even playing anything, or like you're like remote control or the microphone that's not plugged in or whatever. But like, I haven't had a consistent place to really be able to comfortably practice for a while now, and I'm hoping to change that soon. But like, it's when I'm up there, I'm not necessarily worried about moving and like doing this and that. I'm just worried about conveying the songs in the manner that they should be, and giving them the respect that they should have. And in that respect is like doing them the most justice that I can in that moment with the tools that I have, And so a lot of my show in my head is me trying to land all of these vocal parts and have them just hit the best way that they can. And so mine is very just focused on like the performance of the material and not so much the outside, like how I'm like visually expressing that. And then, I have Christian who jumps around and spins and throws things and just goes psycho on stage and just kind of like,
Better watch
you
that
know,
guitar, Nick.
yeah, he has not hit anybody. Well, I can't say any. I can't talk, but I just had a knock on the floor. But
If that happens at the Gramercy
no
show,
mishaps yet.
if that happens at the Gramercy show, you're welcome to call me out. You are welcome to call me out. I usually sit in the seats.
Yeah, just the
I usually sit in the
yeah
seats
the
to your
outskirts.
left. Yeah.
Oh no.
So you could call me out.
Oh, we'll be fine. He's very considerate with his crazy. He's considerate, and also like I'll see him
Crazy.
start moving around, and he's like he'll like I'll see him getting stoked for a part, and then I'm like, oh, I gotta move too. You know what I mean? Like it's inspiring, it's infectious. So like, you know, there's times for it and there's times not for it. But I'm always just trying to focus on doing the thing, and the moving and all that stuff is like kind of like background. Like when I can, I will.
Yeah, fair enough. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time, for coming back on the show. It's great to be able to chat with you. Just with the headlining tour coming up and the Death We Seek coming out, is there anything else with Currents that you'd like to promote that you're allowed to say, of course?
If this comes out at midnight tomorrow, if you're in Ridgefield, Connecticut, or close to it, we're having a little hangout listening party at Nod Hill Brewery in Ridgefield. It's 21 plus, but we're gonna be there chilling. Maybe have a beer or so. You can have as many as you want. I'll probably have like one ish, and then we'll just be chilling, signing things, and just generally hanging out with some friends and family and fans and all that. And then we have Silk City Coffee. When the record comes out, that'll be May 7th. Well, it comes out May 5th, and then we're doing May 7th. It's going to be a similar thing, like other area of Connecticut. It's Manchester. It's closer to Hartford. So we're doing that same vibe, just with coffee instead of beer. And record comes out May 5th. And if you don't listen to it, you're big, dumb, stupid.
Yep. And I got to tell you, too, I love how you're promoting that when I couldn't even see your mouth. It was like I was talking to Tim the Toolman's neighbor. I love it. So,
hello.
So thank you so much, Brian. Everybody, Brian of Currents, The Death We Seek, out May 5th. Be sure to check it out. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.